everybody, I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into an all-new episode of That Recap Show. Now, normally this would be the part where I'd say major spoiler alert ahead, but we are on this journey towards Deadpool and Wolverine, and along this journey we are rewatching all of the classic X-Men movies and all of the classic Deadpool movies too. So, without further ado, let's start the show!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
Joining with me to break down everything from X2, X-Men United, it's Jon Jon Rico!
Oh, hey, hi. I was muted to cough, and I didn't unmute. Yeah. Hey, hello, it's me.
Hey, hi, hello.
What's up?
X2,
yes,
X-Men United.
Oh yeah.
I didn't even remember that there was a tag to that. I've just been calling it X2 for forever.
I think that's when it came out, but every time I look now, it just says X2. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess they stopped calling it X-Men United. So
yeah, on Disney Plus, it just says X2.
Yeah, everything. But, yeah, that's what I see now. I guess history. It maybe feels like the what is it called, Mandela effect?
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. I mean, we were talking about this in the original X-Men movie one. This is the movie that I remember. All of the parts that I remember from the old X-Men movies, like that I enjoy, that I liked and remembered, are from this movie. Like as I was watching it before we did this recap, I was like, oh, I love that part. Oh, I remember that part. Yeah, that's a great part. Totally holds up. Like this is the X-Men movie I remember. Like all of the good parts that I remember from the older X-Men movies are from this movie. So, so this is the one defining X-Men movie for me. Absolutely awesome. And one thing that I definitely have to add is I love that the sass just continues. Like there are so many elements of sass in this that continue. One of my absolute favorite is the scene where Logan first comes back to the mansion and he sees Professor Xavier, who's in Cerebro, and he talks about how like he doesn't particularly mind that he's smoking around the mansion, but if he continues to smoke while he's in Cerebro with him, that he will make him think that he's a 6-year-old girl.
You do that? I'd have Jean braid your hair.
I'd have Jean braid your hair.
Yeah, like a little playful banter between the two.
Completely like straight face, just says, "I'd have Jean braid your hair." And I was like, holy shit!
Yeah, it's really funny.
Yeah, I love that. I love that we still get the gag continued that Logan just does not give a shit about Cyclops' vehicles in general. Because he just uses a claw to start the car when he finds out it's Cyclops' car.
Yeah. Well, I mean, considering the situation, I think it's still pretty good to work in haste.
Yeah, except they explicitly point out, oh, this is Scott's car. And he goes,
oh yeah, he'll never pass up the opportunity.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I just love that. The last thing I have is, and I can't believe that I get the opportunity to do this, a pop culture reference in this movie, and this is years before the reference that I'm now, my messed up brain is connecting it to. At the emotional climax of the movie, Jean is, spoiler alert in case you haven't seen the movie, spoiler alert, Jean is, sacrificing herself. She's lifting up the X-Men jet and she's holding back the water and everything, and then finally the jet gets
and preventing Nightcrawler from jumping at the same time.
She's doing she's doing all of the things
and communicating through the professor. She's crazy.
She's doing all of the things. It's the emotional climax of the movie, and then finally, the jet is high enough. She lets the water go and everything like that. And obviously, Scott's a little broken up. Wolverine's a little broken up about the situation, and Logan goes, "She's gone," and Scott goes, "You don't say that." Just reminded me of Step Brothers.
But you don't say that.
That's all I could think. I had to pause the movie because I was like, I should not be giggling right now. This is an emotional part of the movie, like super emotional part. But I just started giggling because all I could think of was Step Brothers.
Classic disassociating.
I know. Look, it's just me coping with.
There
I
you
can't
go.
handle emotions. This is me. But anyway, that's my pop culture reference for this particular movie. But Rico, what were some of your instant reactions for X2?
Man, I fucking love this movie. Okay, it's one of my favorite conflict movies of all time. It's in the top 20 up there with some pretty good company when you consider all the conflict movies that have been made. It's pretty hard to get up into that high list. And yeah, and to me, it still holds up more than 20 years later. This came out in 2003 now.
Wow.
Yeah, this is just a prime and a rare example of a sequel outdoing its predecessor, especially at the time. I think sequels were mostly known for not being as good as the originals, and you always get the rare occasion where the sequel outdoes the original in a big way. And this was definitely one of them, especially in Spider-Man 2. I think is also
Yeah.
around the same time as well. So that's a nice little. These two franchises both started off well and then stepped up even more the next time through. So that was really fun to watch around the same era too. So really good time for those movies. As you know, the first movie had Michael Kamen kind of setting up the music and stuff like that, but in this movie, we get the X-Men theme from John Ottman that we come to know and love throughout the years. It's kind of come back in different movies, and it's also been used in as a little bit reference in the Marvels credits scene when we see Beast in there with Monica's character, right? And so that again, that's always kind of like the cinematic theme of the X-Men that kind of comes back as like what it's come back in the MCU later on. So that's pretty cool. Speaking of Beast, we also get to see him early on too. I'll talk about that later. That's really awesome. But also, I love Brian Cox as William Stryker in this. I think he is probably one of the best. He's probably the best villain in the entire X-Men franchise, and that says a lot for his character. But I also love Alan Cumming as Nightcrawler. He is by far my favorite character in the movie. I think he is done perfectly, especially when you think about the character itself. I think he's like the most accurate, next to like Wolverine, I would say. So yeah, I just always been one of my favorite performances in the franchise, and it sucks we only got this one-off performance from him. And but the opening scene where he attacks the White House under being brainwashed by Stryker, of course, but that whole scene, like just the display of his powers, that's where we get to hear the bamf for the first time. Like that's probably the most iconic onomatopoeia next to the snick from Wolverine. So like those two are just hand in hand, and just kind of see him kind of display that power, and then of course it ultimately like not pulling through with the plan, obviously, but just a great way to show us Nightcrawler in general. And then just getting to see him display that empathy and stuff later on with other characters like Storm, and the loss of Jean and stuff like that was just really, really great.
Yeah. Talking about that White House scene, it's incredible. Like, and that last door right before he gets to the Oval Office, when it gets kicked open, you just see the blue mist and everything that he comes out.
Yeah, the sulfur, that's whatever it is from the dimension. Yeah.
Oh man, that is so perfect.
Yeah.
It's such a good scene in general, but especially being the opening scene, it's like incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah. Oh, it sets the tone for the movie perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Such a good scene. Such a just like snaps you right into like chaos, basically, because you're seeing it and you don't even really know exactly what's happening at first, which is awesome. It's an awesome way to start it. But yeah.
And then he's not thrown away in the movie too. He's like recruited in a great way, and he's got these great character moments with Storm. I said, and also like just seeing him interact with like the professor, and he has a great interaction with Wolverine too when they first meet. I think that's really funny. He was just like, Steve, I don't want to hear your spiel. But my favorite scene, actually, one of my favorite scenes in the movie is the scene between him and Storm when they're talking about like basically their 2 points of views of life, and Storm's just talking about how she carries up so much anger with her and how. It shows the true empath and Kurt, and just how he's just not able to hold that anger. He's able to, because especially because of his life in the circus and stuff like that. So yeah, I just love the way they handle his character, and Alan Cummings' performance in this is just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nightcrawler is such a cool character in
Oh,
general.
one of my favorites in general. Yeah,
absolutely. You want to get to some big takeaways?
Yes, let's do it.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna kick off big takeaways, and kind of same to form as our recap for the first X-Men movie. I just kind of wanted to first off, I guess I have kind of a 2-parter. first off, wanted to just talk about like one of the scenes that has always stuck with me from this movie, and it's the invasion of the mansion when Logan is just kind of watching over all of the younger mutants and stuff, and just how that whole thing goes. And then I think not only is that scene like chaos, almost on the level of chaos with the Secret Service agents to Nightcrawler, where they don't know what is happening. They think there's multiple assailants. They think it's all this stuff. We are taken as the audience. We don't like we knew that they were going to invade type of thing.
Right.
So kind of got
the setup for it from Stryker and the president.
But still, like, we don't know like who's going to get taken out, who's going to be able to like escape fast enough, like stuff like that. I love the chaos of that scene. But also on top of that, I love the raw display of like Logan's just savageness, I guess.
Yeah,
like,
it's our first taste of feral Wolverine, basically. Yeah.
It's just, and when he jumps over like off that balcony, oh man. He gets two people, and then he does like backhanded into two more people. It's just
him just running at a soldier screaming is always going to be like one of my favorite intimidating shots for superheroes. Like he really commits to that scream,
and even when he wanted to be quiet about it, and he does it to the guy's foot first.
Yeah.
Like when the guy's coming around the corner, oh man!
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's such a good scene.
And it's only such a small taste of what we get to see later on.
Yeah,
Hugh Jackman, which is great.
It's crazy, but yeah, that's such a good scene, and seeing like kind of just the chaos unfold, and kind of just trying to regroup and get everybody out that you can, and just I love that. I will always love that scene. But also another thing that I kind of want to bring up in takeaways is I really like that, you know, in the first movie, we kind of had, you know, mutants against mutants type of thing. Like
X-Men versus Magneto.
Right.
Yeah.
We had that. This, we have, you know, everyone having to come together against a bigger bad, which, you know, is Stryker. Stryker is, like you said, a very good villain, a very good big bad.
Yeah, with as far as comic book movie villains, for sure, for me.
Right. And so I just really, I like this plot in general, because I like being able to see everyone having to work as a team and kind of having to kind of, you know, they obviously split up at the end, but like, you know what I mean? Like we still see that everyone can work together and have strengths and weaknesses on both sides. Like when kind of teaming up. And that's kind of the stuff that I really always remembered from this movie and really always enjoyed from this movie, is kind of, you know, having that other big bad, not just having, you know, Magneto versus the X-Men. The X-Men are taking out some of the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood's capturing Rogue. Like, you know what I mean? Like I just enjoyed having kind of everyone on one side against this insane threat type of thing.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that. So I wanted to make sure that I pointed that out. But Rico, what were some of your big takeaways from X2?
Yeah, one of the things I love about this movie specifically is that conflict that they start in this. It's our real first like humans versus mutants conflict, and especially again after watching X-Men '97, kind of seeing the way they're portraying the human and mutant kind of war in general. We're getting that kind of the same thing with Stryker kind of being the one trying to mastermind it, from especially going all the way to the president to try and do it, right?
Yeah.
So and that's how the movie starts, with him orchestrating an attack on the president. In order to kind of forward his plan to start like this war on humans and mutants. And I just love the way that they handle that in general. So I just love that we get those parallels now after watching X-Men '97, just kind of seeing the different takes on that kind of a story. And also kind of showing us the two points of view of also the mutants, because it's kind of like a three-way war here, because as much as Magneto and the Brotherhood are willing to work with the X-Men to a degree, they're also on their own agenda, and it kind of doesn't work. It works against obviously Xavier's whole point of view, right? So that's what I always love, that they always bring back that whole part of that conflict as well. And it's a lot of juggling, but they do it on a really good well. And you're also dealing with stuff that handles Wolverine's origin at the same time, because that's kind of a big major part of this storyline when it comes to Stryker and Alkali Lake and stuff like that. Like a major part of the movie has to do with Wolverine's origin. So I love that. And they do a good job of juggling other characters as well as focusing on Wolverine in that part. But Yeah. So I loved. We were talking about the scene between Scott and Logan earlier, or yeah, Scott and Logan, and you know the I love the bond they formed through their grief after the loss of Jean. And we were talking about this earlier. It just kind of sucks that it wasn't earned, right? But
Yeah.
I do like that acknowledgement at the end when and it's another thing. Again, I'm kind of bringing this back to X-Men '97, but you know, Logan tells Scott like she chose you, like that's the whole thing. The whole like Logan conceding to Scott has always been that cool part of that kind of like triangle that I've always appreciated. And they even do that in X-Men '97 too, like especially when Jean kisses Logan, he's like, I don't like this. I just like you're Scott's girl, like you guys supposed to have like the story, whatever.
Right.
And
Right.
so I've always appreciated that like complicated part of Logan's character arc. Like it's always the one thing he always struggles with. And it's something we dive into more later on. Another thing I love, this is a very quick one, but it also leads to another really cool like kind of set of Easter eggs that we see later on. The scene where Mystique drugs the security guard officer and injects the iron into him. But on the TV in the bar is a human version of Hank McCoy, aka Beast, which is kind of like
Ah.
our first version of Beast in the X-Men movies. And I thought, I'm like, man, it's a really cool little Easter egg to throw him in there. And I really like the way that, because he looks like kind of like the comic book version of Hank McCoy, kind of like a little, almost like kind of like a Clark Kent looking guy. I don't know who the actor was that played him, but I really like that. And then of course we get to see him later on, played by Kelsey Grammer
Mhm.
in Beast form, which is great. But I love like that's our first reference to Beast, first of all, because we didn't get to see him in the first movie. And but then when Mystique is infiltrating, I think Stryker's office as Lady Deathstrike, and going through all the computers, there's a lot of files on a lot of
Oh
different
yeah.
mutants, and it would take me way too long to list all the different ones that were on there. Deadpool's on there, Vanessa, of course, for relating to Deadpool and Wolverine, like they're on there. But also Gambit's on there, which is another great little reference on there as well. So I love that we get those scenes where we can just kind of name drop a bunch of mutants because the X-Men world is just so vast.
Yeah.
And also, this movie has one of my favorite comic book movies shots, like visual shots ever. At the end of the movie, when they go to talk to the president to kind of show them what Stryker's been doing, when everything freezes and it goes dark, and then the lightning flashes and we see all the X-Men there.
Yeah.
It's just a really cool visual. It's something that I can see done in like a little comic book panel, like showing the people there, and then boom, flash, and you just see like the X-Men just appear out of nowhere, all spread out amongst the people too, like how they blend in amongst like the crowd. So I love that shot, and I just love that whole scene too because it's just a great way. It's a great callback to the beginning of the movie, of course, because the movie begins at the White House with Stryker trying to start this conflict, and it has to wrap up with the X-Men at the White House ending the conflict essentially, or at least trying to give some kind of reassurance to the president, right?
Yeah.
So I do love that, and it also begins and ends in a great way with the monologue from Professor X in the beginning of the movie, but also ending with the monologue about mutants from Jean Grey at the end, and then teasing the Phoenix. So it's a great tease of the Phoenix, but it's such, yeah, it's just only great that we didn't get a great follow up of that tease. But yeah, this movie does a great. Both movies, like this and the first X-Men, do a great job of setting up the sequels that come up afterwards. Because the first movie ends with Professor X giving Wolverine the clue about Alkali Lake, so that he can go on searching by
Mhm.
his past, and that sets up everything that we see in this movie. So, and then this one sets up what we're going to see in the next movie, and then of course, but you just don't know what happens later on from there. So, yeah, so that's I love that part about this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many like not only all of the references to other mutants that they were able to name drop and all of this stuff. There's just there's so much, so many, maybe not so much, so many just little things in this movie that you can
Just
enjoy.
so much in this movie to absorb. It's
Like
so fun.
I love, when they're all camped out together, like and we have Magneto basically telling Logan that he's dumb, but also he's just everything's not always about you. or he goes like something, he says something like, there he goes thinking that everything's about him again, or
Yeah.
something like that.
How
And
about
he's
when he
really,
just straight up trolls Rogue? Just love what you done with your hair.
yeah. They're like
Like,
giggling.
dang, like yeah, they're giggling like they're in high school, like high school kids. Like look at this kid
Can
doing that. Huh?
confirm
Oh my
Magneto
gosh.
and Mystique are the mean girls of high school.
Oh my gosh. Totally.
They're
Totally.
sitting in the corner making fun of Rogue. But Yeah, there's just so many like really fun, not only Easter eggs, but just fun little things about this movie that made it enjoyable for rewatches. Like
Mhm.
it's awesome. Like I remember seeing this and I just remember parts that I've always liked, but just rewatching it now, because like I said, just like the first one, I haven't rewatched this one in a while,
Yeah,
long while.
I love it so it's one I actively try to revisit because of how good it is for me.
Yeah. I love that I
Yeah.
hadn't watched the first one and this one for a while, because then I was able to kind of like, there were parts that I just didn't remember that,
Mhm.
connected the major parts that I will always remember that I really enjoy, like the major scenes and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
these
Everything at
little,
Bobby's house with the parents, I think, which is funny because we were talking about X-Men 97, like, there's another kind of parallel it did when it came to, Roberto's,
yep.
parents too. It's like, well, about Bobby's mom just being like, "Have you tried, like, not being a mutant?"
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
like, I don't think that's how it works, mom.
yeah.
And I like the way, like, Pyro kinda throws some subtle shade, like, "No, I actually just say to carry it in the dad's gene, so it's his
It's
fault."
actually his fault.
His fault.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many
Yeah.
like good little
Yeah.
like one-liners
It's
like
got
that.
yeah, there's emotion, there's some actually like really solid comedy. Like I just like when they ask what Logan does and goes,
What exactly are you professor of, Mr. Logan?
Art.
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 Yeah. Like the great character moments. And then the action is also like a
Yeah.
huge step up from the first movie. And it's just it's just fantastic.
I love when it's earlier in the movie before the or the mansion invasion, and Logan wakes up and he finds Bobby in the kitchen, and he goes, "Got any beer? This is a school."
I just remember the convenience of it. I wish I had a friend who could just cool my drinks right away like that. Like
That was cool.
That was the part that made you want power. I think just like the convenience you could have in everyday
Yeah.
life of doing it.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, there's so many little things we could go on and on and on. We can
Oh,
spend
man.
20
It's
minutes
such a
just
great
on this
movie.
segment going back and forth about these things. But before we go too far, do you wanna get to some predictions?
Let's do it.
Well, I guess just like with the recap of the first one, it's not so much predictions, but it's some things that we're hoping that will carry into X-Men, or I guess either the X-Men in the MCU or Deadpool and Wolverine. We'll see sightings of things that we want to see, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
anyway, you want to kick us off with whatever we're gonna call this?
Yeah. So I'll start off like just like last time. The stuff that we've already seen in the Deadpool and the Wolverine trailer that from this movie that we're gonna get. We obviously already know that the return of Pyro is coming back, and I think it's really cool that we're gonna see like what could be a more comic version, a comic book accurate version of him because he's got like a cool looking suit and stuff like that. And I think there'll be again. I always talk about the way we the way effects have advanced ever since
Yeah.
these characters were last on screen. And even because even in the Last Stand, his powers look pretty cool. But I think you could just do so much more now with today's what we can do today. And I really can't wait to see what they do with a guy like Pyro. And also, we see in that same shot when we see all the mutants lined up in front of the Paul Rudd head is that we see Lady Deathstrike, which I'm super excited because one. We didn't like we didn't really gloss over a lot, but there's so much that we missed because there's a lot to love in this movie. But the fight between Wolverine and Lady Deathstrike is one of the coolest comic book movie fights probably ever. Still, I just love the brutality of it, and I just remember that scene of like her claws coming and just being like, "Oh dang, that's pretty cool." And just the way they kind of like they mirrored her and Logan with like the neck cracking and the knuckle cracking and stuff like that. It's just I just always loved the way they portrayed that character. But I can't wait to see what they do with her. I really hope that I imagine she will probably just be a character that's just like using an action scene and we won't see very much of her. But the fact that she'll be there is still really cool. And it'd be cool if we could like to see another version of her later on in the future as well. But again, the one character that I really want to see more than anything is probably Alan Cumming as Nightcrawler the most. Like I love Cody Smith McPhee, and I think his take is pretty cool. Another underutilized version of the character though, for sure. But it just kind of sucks that we only got this one version of the character. He need to get a chance to come back. I think there were plans for him to come back in the third one, but they were like we put in too many mutants and they took out him for some reason. I was like, dang it, we could have gotten more. But yeah, I would love to see him kind of just like do this one off of this character again, especially like if we're going to the void and stuff. We'll just be like, hey, I was this version of the character, I never came back. Like if he was self-aware of it, like a funny version would be really really cool. But I think when the MCU X-Men come, like Nightcrawler is a character that you 100% have to have in there at some point. I think he's just too endearing, and fans love him too much that it's hard not to include him at some point. I just hope that he's just not thrown to the side because we're throwing too many cooks in the kitchen, right?
Right.
So yeah, that's I really just want the characters to be done and done right if they're going to be used at all.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would look, nothing against Pyro. I think obviously he's going to be included in this, and
Yeah.
and I think he's probably going to have a cool part. But I would love to see Nightcrawler like just pop out for a second or two. I think that would be awesome. But just in general, I'm in 100% agreement with you. I really hope we get something early on with Nightcrawler in the MCU in the introduction of the mutants. I hope maybe he's not the core. We kind of discussed this already. We kind of hope that it's going to be like concentrated on a smaller team and then expand the roster a little bit. But I can't wait. Nightcrawler is
I
one
just
of
picture
my
this credit credit scene where like we're somewhere out in Germany or we don't know where we're out and we pan out, we're at a circus and I'm like, oh, we're gonna meet Nightcrawler. Like I can just see the ways that you can hint at him already. Just make those underutilized X-Men characters shine again, in my opinion.
Yeah, that would be awesome. The other thing, and we were talking about this kind of before we started recording, kind of it's going off of one of your takeaways where you were talking about how Scott and Logan kind of had that bond over the trauma of losing Jean, of her sacrifice and stuff like that, and just like you were saying in the classic 90 series and to a degree in X-Men 97, we get to see that play out a lot longer because we have
dynamic for sure.
And we have them around a lot longer. And the way that these movies went, Cyclops got pushed further and further out of the spotlight, from about halfway into this movie.
He's not a actor at the beginning. Yeah, I was like, where is he? And they're like, he's taken. I was like, okay.
So we never really got the opportunity. So I'm really hoping when we revisit, like maybe we're not going to get this in Deadpool and Wolverine, but when we get, the mutants in the MCU, I hope we get an emphasis of this core team. And I hope we get to see this more play out as a common dynamic between, whoever ends up being Logan, whoever ends up being Scott Summers, and just keeping them kind of that kind of relationship, I guess, is the only way to say it. It kind of more in the forefront like it was in the cartoons and in X-Men 97 and stuff like that, because I think it's a really good, not good, but it's a really interesting dynamic, I guess, to have in this team, and it's mutual respect and disrespect, like at the same time.
Yeah,
so they're like frenemies.
That's exactly it. They're frenemies. I think that's exactly the word to use, because they can work together in the times that they need to, but there's also yeah, but you like my girl. We don't mess around. We're not cool.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like sports teams. Like you got your teammates. Like yeah, we're on the same team, but we're not buds.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm really interested to see that. Hopefully, having the ability to play out, I guess, longer type of thing, and having that be more of like a common place, like it was in the cartoons. Like that's
let's just make Cyclops a character that like people care about again. I think again the 97 show has already given us glimpses of how great the character can be, and I think in live action it's a no-brainer that he should be one of the kind of like the forefront leaders of that team, and especially because of what they've done with the character in comics since then too. There's again the story potential is massive with the character now, as opposed to just, again, we've always seen him as the Boy Scout because that's how I think he was just kind of written that way. And I think now they're finally like, okay, we're gonna like find something to do with Cyclops now and do some cool stuff with them, and they have.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait, and it's fun taking this stroll down memory lane of all of these movies. I'm looking forward to the next one. Well,
yeah,
I don't know about the next one.
Yeah,
anyway. I'm looking forward to revisiting it. I don't know if I'm looking forward to the actual movie itself. But
yes,
I like this stroll down memory lane. But as we always say, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of X2 when you first saw it? And will you be revisiting it before Deadpool and Wolverine comes out? And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our latest audio and video podcast releases. Bye, everybody!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.